I'm just going to do go run main.go. Now, the idea is not to teach you Go in this episode, but if you would like some more episodes on Go, please again throw that in the chat. I would be happy to create some Go content for you all. So if I was to run this manually, hopefully it will spin up a Fiber server, which is, by the way, very, very similar to Go Node Express, as some of you may have picked out with the app.get. Very, very similar, which is why you can use handlebars so easily with it. So if I go to that one, I get a really rubbish loading screen, and that is because the image that I'm using is from Imager, which is my image, but it doesn't like 127. If I put in localhost and colon is there, wonderful. So this is the real beginnings of my application. I've got a title, which I'm passing through from the server. I have got a description, let's visit India. And I've got some headings, which don't really do anything at the moment, but I've kind of tagged them already. But that's going to come in episode number 2. So please stick around for that one. This is really cool because I've got a running app locally. What if I want to get this in the cloud? How do I do that? Well, we can close this down and we can open up the VS Code. And what we can do is close that terminal for a second. We want to Dockerize it. So like I said, I've got the code. I want to containerize it. I'm going to use Docker. But in here, I'm going to write a Docker file. And a Docker file is just like a load of layers. It's a package of the code. So I'm going to grab an image. And the image I'm going to use is Go. And it's a Golang image because obviously I want the base is written in Go. And inside the image of Golang, it already has everything installed for me. I don't have to do anything extra there. So let's grab a Golang image. I'm going to use the same. Go version as I've got locally, which is 1.17.6. And that just keeps it consistent with what I have locally as to what I want it to run in the image. And next I'm going to say Alpine, and I want Alpine, and I want Alpine 3.15. Alpine image is just usually the skimmed down version of what you would usually get. Wonderful. So I've got an image. Let's create a working directory. Now the working directory I want in this container, I want that to be home. I just want it, you can call it app, you can have it in your root directory, wherever you like. I just want it to be in home. Then I want to copy, and I want to copy my go.mod file, and I want to stick that in my root directory of home. So, my current dir. Next, I want to copy my go.sum file, very much the same, stick it in the same place. Then I want to run a command. Now, you imagine this is just running through a terminal. So the command you put in here is very much what you'd write into a terminal. So I'm going to do go mod, and I'm going to download. So I want to install all of my dependencies. So if I look in my mod file, I can see I've required Fiber version 2, and I've got templates. I want to bring these in, install them into my project. So go mod download. After I've done a go download, I want to make the views file. As you can see, I've got a views folder over here. So if I can do a mkdir and views, just like so. Next, I'm going to copy everything that has the Go extension at the end of the file, just to make sure I get my main.go, my test.go, etc. And if I wanted to have any more, if I build this out with more roots, I could abstract it even further. And I could have different files with the extension.go and copy that all across. Just kind of make sure I get everything all together. Then we want to copy everything from views and put it into a new folder in the container called views, which is awesome. So now we have all of our code, or all of our code files, should I say, into the container. After we've done that, I am going to build a binary. In Go, when you compile the code that you've written, you build a binary with it. And that just means that you can distribute it. You can build a binary for Windows, for Mac OS, for Solaris if you really want, loads of different distributions. There is a way to, that's a whole different kettle of fish, but I can go into that quite deeply another time. Essentially, I can build a bunch of binaries. For this, I want to build for Linux, because that is the base image. I want to build this for Linux. So if I do Go operating system, and I want to use that one, and I want to tag that as Linux. Next, I want to do the architecture. So I want to do Go Arch. And for that, I want it to be AMD 64. Okay, so I'm building for the AMD 64 chipset. Now, this is where I'm going to come to something in a minute when I build this locally, because I'm actually running on a Mac M1 chip, which is ARM, not AMD. But this caught me out when I was building this. Then I want to do my command to build the binary. So I'm going to do go build, and I'm going to remove all the debug flags as well, because this is going to be a production grade build. So I'm going to do LD flags, and that's going to remove the symbols and flags internally when I build the binary. It helps bulk it out, slim it down, because it's quite bulky if you don't do it, if you have a big binary. For me, it's just good practice. I like to do that. Then I'm going to give it an output, and I'm going to call it website. Because if I did give it an output name, it would probably call it whatever my directory is called. It would be DevOps Series 1. Wonderful. So let's recap quickly. Got an image of Golang, base image. We've got a working directory of home. We've copied across some files, the mod files. We've downloaded the dependencies. We've made a new directory, and we've copied all of the Go files over and the views directory. So I'll be able to run the server and render the front end through the templating. And we built a binary, and this binary should run it when you call it. After you have built that, we are going to run chmod. And chmod, because we want to give it all of the access that we can when it comes to running it. Some systems get a bit flaky with this. It's just the access rights, whether it's read, write, execute, etc. It's more like an operating system thing. So that is wonderful. I could just do expose 3000 here, which is the port, and then run endpoint or entry point. And I can give it an executable, and this executable is website. However, if I build this file as it is, this is going to be about 1 gigabyte in size. That is massive, too big to deploy into the cloud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a multi-layered Docker image. Now, using a multi-layered Docker image means I can do all the build at the top, and then in the second image, I can just copy all the things I need from my build artifacts. So in this instance, it's going to be my home views folder, and it's going to be my binary that I've built. So to do that, I'm going to say above the expose, let's just do this one. Let's do from again. And from here, we are going to do, I don't want it to be from platform. I want it to be from Alpine, and I want to keep consistent with what I've got above. So 3.15. And what it's going to do is going to take the Alpine image of 3.15, and it's going to use that instead. That's the base image now. Now what I can do is I can copy from a stage. Now a stage, I'm going to say from build. Now I'll come back to this in a second, but I'm going to copy from the build stage, which is the stage above, and I'm going to say the home, and I'm going to say views, and I'm going to stick it in a new folder called views. Okay, and the same again, if I do copy, let's say from stage, and we're going to do build, and we're going to take the binary this time. So we're going to do home/website, which is what we built. It's the output over here. And then again, I'm going to put that in the home directory. It doesn't need to be in a new folder like views did, but I'm going to stick it in the home directory. Now from there, I can say expose 3000. Then I can give it the entry point of the binary when we call it in the container. But there's one other thing that I haven't done yet, which I need to do. And I have specified I'm copying these files from build, but I haven't done anything about this stage being the build. So I can say, just like so, pop it up there and say as build. So it knows when it comes to building this image, it is a build. That's the build stage. Copy these artifacts from build, put into the new one, which is the Alpine image 3.15, and then run it from there. That will slim down the binary a long way. Hopefully we should aim to get a binary or a Docker image, should we say, of about 15 megabytes. So if I was to do the Docker build command, so I should make sure, so my Docker running, my daemon, I'm going to do a Docker build. So Docker build, and let's do platform. Now this is, if you remember, this is the issue I had. So when I was building this, I'm running on a Mac M1. Now, I have yes, that word, never had to specify a platform before. I've always just gone off the Intel chip that I've been running until now. So I'm building for AMD 64, which is the cloud architecture machine, the server that's going to be running on. And when I did this locally, I was building on ARM chip, which means they're everything. So always specify the build, the platform that you're doing. So if I do platform, and I'm going to specify Linux, and I'm going to do AMD 64. Nope, yep, 64, like so. And then I'm going to give it a tag, and I'm going to say DevOps on Azure, episode 1, version 1. So this is going to build for platform Linux AMD 64 and tag it DOA EP1, DevOps on Azure, episode 1. And I didn't specify the Docker image. Of course, I always forget that. It's the period at the end. So specifying the image, if I put a period, it will build this image. Lovely. What have we got here? Internal load metadata for Docker IO, Alpine 15 latest. What have we done wrong? That's not good. Of course, I didn't put my semicolon there. Of course, completely overlooked that. So let's just make sure that didn't build anything. If I do Docker images, cool, nothing was there. Let's clear that one. Let's try that one again. Awesome. So we've got a 14.6 megabyte image, or Docker image, shall I say. Fantastic. It's built it. So what do I want to do with that one? I want to tag it. So if I do Docker tag, actually, I don't want to tag it just yet. I actually want to create a container registry in Azure, or a resource group even. When we deploy to cloud, we have a subscription. Inside the subscription, we're going to have resource groups. And inside the resource groups, you're obviously going to have resources. So we want to create an app service in the cloud. So to do that, I need to log into Azure. So let's just log into Azure command line. So if I do AZ login, that's going to take me to a web browser. I'm going to select my account. Wonderful. We have logged in. So let's go back to VS Code. Wonderful. We've logged in here. So let's clear that one. Next, I want to create a resource group. To do that, I'm going to do AZ group create, and I'm going to give it a location of UK South, because that is where I am. I'm based in London. I'm then going to give it a name, and I'm going to call this Liam DevOps series. Okay, and actually we can just hyphen that one in here to make that a little bit more readable. So we're going to create a resource group for me in the cloud in my account. So let that run. Awesome. We have got a resource group. What do we do in a resource group? We build a resource, or we create a resource. So in this instance, I want to create a container registry to store my image. So I'm going to do AZ ACR, so Azure Container Registry. I'm going to create the resource, and I need to specify the resource group. So resource-group. Once I've specified the resource group is Liam's DevOps series, so I can copy that one from there, paste it in. I then want to give a name to my container registry. So -n for name, and I'm going to call it, let's say, DevOps on Azure. Wonderful. So that is going to create a resource group. It's going to create a container registry called DevOps on Azure for me. Now, I actually want to give that a SKU. So that is going to tell it what kind of plan I want. And I'm going to say I want a basic plan. Oh, I don't want all caps. I want it to be basic. I don't need standard. I don't need anything extra. This is a real basic application, so I'm going to call it basic. Finally, I actually want to have the admin enabled, so I can log in to this container registry. I am the admin. I want to be able to push, create, and pull from it. So I'm going to say that is true. And hopefully, with a bit of luck, that will run. Wonderful. So it is kicking off. It's running. And what this is doing, it's gone and created it. Wonderful. So to be honest, I can go and check this in the portal, but I kind of believe it's all there. And if it isn't, if something's gone wrong, it will just tell me anyway. So Lastly, I want to log in to that container registry. And that is really quite easy to do. I am just going to do login, AZ, sorry. What do we want? This one. So AZ, ACR, login. And I want to give it the name, which I've just called it. And I can find it a little bit up here, whatever I just called it. There we go. So the login server, DevOps on Azure, ACR, Azure cr.io. So that may seem familiar because obviously if you use Docker Hub, you'll have a Docker registry, very, very similar. And I don't need those hyphens in there. I need it to be like that. Yeah. So hopefully that will call. That uses a Docker engine underneath, and like the background, it kind of, I don't know what that thing there, that endpoint suffix, is automatically limited. Wonderful, that's fine. That just means got rid of it. I didn't need to paste that in. I just need to paste the name of it. But it used the Docker engine, the daemon in my local host to sort of log into this registry using my credentials from my Azure account. Cool. So if I do Docker images, I've got this one here that we built a moment ago, 14 megabytes. I now need to tag that image so I can push it to my new registry that I've just created. So to do that, I'm going to use Docker tag. Oh, if I can type correctly, I'm going to do DevOps on Azure, episode 1, version 1. And I want to call this one here. So I want to make sure that I'm pushing to that registry, which I've just created, and I'm going to call it DevOps on Azure, episode 1, version 1. And what that's going to do is going to tag the image locally. Wonderful. We have got 2 images. One is a tag of the other, and it will push to DevOps on Azure, my container registry, in the cloud. That's what we're going to do. So lastly, if I do a Docker push, hopefully this will go up to my container reg. And all I have to do is push this image, so I can copy and paste it from my command line, and I specify version 1 because I want this tag to go up, this version, this image, I want it to be pushed. And as you can see, it's super, super quick. It is lightning quick because it's such a small image. It's done, just like that. If that was a gigabyte, if I built this without it being a multi-layered image, that would take ages. And I was doing this yesterday, and it was timing out. Completely timed out because it just took so long. So if I go into my Azure account, so let's just reload this, make sure I'm in. Oh, of course I've logged out, but it's fine. We will log straight back in. What we've got here, if I look in my resource group, I've got Liam DevOps series, and I've got DevOps on Azure. So I've got a container registry. If I want to look in here, you can see I've used 0.01 gigabytes, which is about 10 meg. If I look in repositories, you'll see that my image has pushed up successfully. DevOps on Azure, V1, and you can see in here I've got 3 layers to my image because there really was nothing more to it. In the Docker image, each individual line that you write and execute is a layer in the image. So the less layers, the better. So how do we get that into app services? We are going to get into app services by creating an app service in the portal. Now, this is kind of where later down the line, the series where we'll automate all of this, but I want to show you this manually first. We go to create. I want to create a new app service. I'm going to choose the resource group, Liam DevOps series. I am going to call it, let's just say Liam's World Website. As you can see, I've done it before. And this is the reason I have chosen to do in Go. I could have done this in Node. Really simply, I could have just knocked up a Node Express server, just like I've done in Go. But the runtime stack isn't available unless it's updated in the past half an hour. Go is not on there. And Go is like a really fast growing language. Lots of people are adopting it. Lots of cloud providers are getting on that now. But we don't have a Go build pack. So what's your other option? Your other option is a Docker container. So I'm going to select Docker container. I'm going to put it in the UK South region, just where everything else is for me. I am then going to create a new app service plan because I haven't got one running already. So to have an app service, you need an app service plan. Kind of goes hand in hand. So it'll create one for me. but I don't need this SKU in size of premium. So remember I put basic earlier for my container registry? I don't need 3.5 gigabytes of memory to run this small app. I am going to use a dev and test one. I'm going to use a gigabyte, and it's free, 60 minutes for free a day. It's cool. So you can actually give it a go yourself. I'm then going to move forward because with this plan, I don't get zone redundancy, which means I don't have a multi-AZ redundancy. So if my one goes down, it goes down, nothing I can do about it. But I don't mind about that because it's not detrimental to me. Next, I'm going to select Docker, or where I'm pulling my Docker image from. Now, I pushed it to my container registry. If I select my options, I have Compose. So if you have multiple containers, those who are familiar with Docker Compose will help bring it up and help network and sort of sort all your containers out in once. But I just have one container, and I don't want the quick start. I want my container registry, and it has automatically populated it for me. So DevOps on Azure, episode number 1, which is today's episode, and version 1. Awesome. So next we want to go to monitoring. Again, if you want, you can turn this on. I don't need it on. I don't need to look at it because container logs is enough for me to gauge what's going wrong. If anything does go wrong. Tags is a really cool one because this is how you can tag your resources in your resource group. This helps you identify different resources that you've got. Again, I don't mind. I've not a lot in there, so I'm going to move past that one. And if I just have one last review of what I've got, so I've got the free SKU, which is just the free plan. I have got a resource group. It's the same resource group, so they can talk to each other. Called it Liam's World website. It's a container pulling from this image, and that's the server that it's pulling. Wicked. Now I can create it. So if I click create in the bottom left, this doesn't take too long because if you remember, the Docker image that we created was tiny, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it spins up pretty quickly. It'll be the demo daemon if it doesn't, but that'll be quite fun to debug. So whilst that is going, this shouldn't take much more than a second. We have created an application, Dockerized it, put it into a container registry, so it's like my private store of images, and now I am pulling from it with services. And it's going to grab it. So if I go to the resource, this will take a moment to load because it's like a cold start, just spinning up. But if I click on this link over here, if it shows up when it shows up on the right-hand side, there we go. So the URL is HTTPS, Liam's World website, or Liam's-world-website, and so forth. Just take a moment to load up. But if you want to check out your deployment, you can go into the deployment center, which is on the left-hand side. And we can look for logs. And this is just connecting to the container logs, what's going on behind the scenes. But as you can see, the eagle eye may have noticed, we have got it running in Azure. We have got an application from my system into the cloud using container registry into app services in Azure. So that is how easy it is to get it up.